Rabbi steps. Rabbi Shemtov, Rabbi Kodlowski, Rabbi Sudak, Rabbi Lou, all the HaShluchim from Britain, all the HaShluchim from everywhere, distinguished guest friends. I can sum up my reaction to this evening in one word: wow. In 2 words, double wow. If I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have believed it. I know Rabbi Kodlowski told me he was inviting a few friends. But I have to tell you, Mikerev Lev, from the depths of my heart, I've received many honors, but none as moving and as humbling as this. Because you, the HaShluchim, are among the most important people in the Jewish world today. You are bringing the Shekhinah to places where perhaps it was never seen before. You are bringing the Shekhinah into lives that never knew it before. And you are transforming the Jewish world. And why are you doing so? Because directly or indirectly you have been touched as I was touched by one of the greatest Jewish leaders, not just of our time, but of all time. Throughout Jewish history there were great leaders, but I know of no precedent for one who transformed visibly and substantively every single Jewish community in the world, including many parts of the world that never had a Jewish community before. And let me tell you a little story that sums it up. It happened 41 years ago. Elaine and I were on our honeymoon. We decided to go to the Swiss Alps. I had never been to mountains before. We went. We arrived. It was brilliant sunshine. The view was magnificent. The next morning, I opened the window and said, "Who moved the mountains?" They're gone. Then I looked again and I saw that they were covered in very low cloud. What to do? We'd come all this way to climb a mountain, and we couldn't go back without climbing a mountain. But we couldn't see more than 2 or 3 feet in any direction. We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know how when we got wherever we got, we'd get back. So I said to Elaine, it is very simple. We will sing Chabad Nigunim. She said, why are we singing Chabad Nigunim? I said, very simple, because if a Jew is lost anywhere in the world, Chabad will find them. All of this because of the Rebbe Zechusa Yagen Aleinu. So it was and so it is. You have been touched by greatness, and every one of you has become great. And therefore I say to all the HaShluchim and to all those wonderful people who support the work of the HaShluchim and make it possible, may God bless all you do. Amen. Friends, Rabbi Kodlowski asked me to tell you a little story, a personal one, of how the Rebbe changed my life. And I've agreed, not because I think my story is special, it isn't. But it is by telling such stories that we remind ourselves of what Chabad is about and what makes it special. It is a story in 3 acts. The first took place in Tavshin Chav Ches in 1968, Tavshin Chav Zayin, Tavshin Chav Ches, when I was a second-year student, a sophomore at university. I'd already encountered Chabad because Rabbi Shmuel Lew and Rabbi Feidish Vogel visited Cambridge. They were among the very first to go out to university campuses, and I was among the very first beneficiaries. Then came that summer, 68, and I came to America to meet great rabbis of the day, and every one of them, every single Rav I met in America said, "You must see the Rebbe, you must see the Rebbe." So I went to Eastern Parkway, 770, I came in, I said to the first Chassid I met, "I'd like to speak to the Rebbe, please." He fell about laughing. He said, "Do you know how many thousands of people are waiting to see the Rebbe? Forget it." I said, "Well, I'll be traveling around America. Here's the phone number of my aunt in Los Angeles. If it's possible, phone me." Weeks later, I was in Los Angeles. Came Motzei Shabbat. The phone went. It was Chabad. The Rebbe will see you on Thursday. Now, I had no money in those days. And all I had was a Greyhound bus ticket. If you ever ridden from Los Angeles to New York on a Greyhound bus, 72 hours non-stop, I sat on this bus, I came to 770, and eventually the moment came when I was ushered into the Rebbe's study. I asked him all my intellectual, philosophical questions. He gave me intellectual, philosophical answers, and then he did what no one else had done. He did a role. He started asking me questions. How many Jewish students in Cambridge? How many get involved in Jewish life? What are you doing to bring other people in? Now, I hadn't come to become a shliach. I come to ask a few simple questions. But all of a sudden, he was challenging me. So I did the English thing. You know, the English can construct sentences like nobody else, you know? They can construct more complex excuses for doing nothing than anyone else on earth. So I started a sentence, "In the situation in which I find myself." And the Rebbe did something which I think was quite unusual for him. He actually stopped me in mid-sentence. He says, "Nobody finds themselves in a situation. You put yourself in a situation. And if you put yourself in that situation, you can put yourself in another situation." That moment changed my life. Here I was. Here I was, a nobody from nowhere, and here was one of the greatest leaders in the Jewish world challenging me not to accept the situation, but to change it. And that was when I realized what I've said many times since, that the world was wrong. When they thought the most important fact about the Rebbe was here was a man with thousands of followers. They missed the most important fact, that a good leader creates followers, but a great leader creates leaders. That's what the Rebbe did for me. And for thousands of others. Friends, that particular episode had an unusual ending. I was due to leave the States, go back to England on my charter flight on a Sunday at the end of August, beginning of September, I can't remember exactly when. So the day before on Shabbos, there was a big Verbrang, and the Hasidim told me, "You're going back to England, take a bottle of vodka, go up to the Rabbi in the Nigun during the Verbrangen, and he'll zog a l'chaim, and he'll take it with you, and that'll be the Rabbi's vodka." So in the middle of the Verbrangen, thousands of people there, I went up to the Rabbi and gave him to say l'chaim, And he looked at me with surprise. He said, "You're going?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Why?" I said, "I have to get back to Cambridge. The term is beginning." He turned to me and he said, "But the Cambridge term does not begin until October." I never knew then, I still don't know today how he knew it, but he was right. He said to me, "I think you should stay for Rosh Hashanah." So he said, "HaShluchim," I went back. Everyone around me wanted to know, what did the Rebbe say to you? What did the Rebbe say? So I told them what the Rebbe said. I didn't know. If the Rebbe says stay, it's an applied thing. You say thank you very much. I didn't realize if the Rebbe said stay, you stay. So I stayed. As a result of which, I heard the Rebbe on Rosh Hashanah blow shofar. Quite the most remarkable experience I ever had. The purity of those notes, the sight of all the Hasidim hanging from every surface trying to catch it. Sight of the Rebbe blowing shofar. And I heard a sound in which heaven and earth touched. And the echoes of that shofar have stayed with me ever since. That was the challenge he threw down, a challenge to lead. That didn't immediately change my life. I went back to university, although I still felt the power of the Rebbe's challenge. So in 1969, after getting my degree, I went to study in Kfar Chabad, where I learned with Rav Gafni, and it was a wonderful experience. In 1970, I came back, got married, started teaching philosophy, writing a doctorate, but I still felt I hadn't done enough to meet the Rebbe's challenge. So I studied for smicha. I qualified as a rabbi, and I thought, that's it. I've grown a little as a Jew, and now I'm ready to get back with the rest of my life. That was when I made the second great mistake. I went back to see the Rebbe again. January 1978, my friends in Lubavitch told me exactly what to do. You put your question in writing, you give the Rebbe options, 1, 2, 3, and the Rebbe will tell you either 1 or 2 or 3. So I set out my options. I said to the Rebbe, I have a career in front of me, I have 3 choices. Number 1, maybe I would like to be an academic. Halavai, one day I would be a professor, or maybe a fellow of my college in Cambridge. Or number 2, I went to university initially to study economics. I'd like to be an economist. Or number 3, I'd like to be a barrister, an advocate. I was a member of one of the inns of court, the inner temple, where you studied to be a lawyer. I went into the Kinus not knowing what the Rebbe would answer. Would it be 1? Would it be 2? Would it be 3? The Rebbe looked at me and he went through the list. Not 1, not 2, not 3. I thought, hang on, this is against the rules. The Rebbe did not give me time to reply. He told me Anglo Jewry was short of rabbis, and therefore he said to me, you must train rabbis. He specified Jews College, which is where rabbis were trained in Britain. And then he said, you yourself must become a congregational rabbi so that your students will come and they will hear you give. I still remember the way he pronounced the word, sermons. They will hear you give sermons and they will learn. And you say you train rabbis, you become a rabbi. Well, I was a little verblonget, a word I've introduced into the English language, courtesy of the BBC. But if the Rebbe says do it, I did it. I gave up my 3 ambitions. I trained rabbis. Jews College, eventually I became head of Jews College, and I became a congregational rabbi in Godesrina Mobilage. You know, a funny thing happened. Having given up all my 3 ambitions, having decided to walk in the completely opposite direction, a funny thing happened. I did become a fellow of my college in Cambridge. I did become a professor. In fact, this year I have 3 professorships, 1 in Oxford University, 2 in London University. I did. deliver Britain's top 2 economics lectures, the Mays lecture and the Hayek lecture, and in a temple made me an honorary barrister and invited me to give a law lecture in front of 600 barristers, the Lord Chancellor, the highest lawyer in Britain, and Princess Anne, who was the master. You know, you never lose anything. I put in Yiddishkeit first, and I learned something very deep. Sometimes the best way of achieving your ambitions is to stop pursuing them and let them pursue you. That was Act 2. Act 3, 1990. Anglo-Jury was looking for a new chief rabbi. It was clear that I was going to be one of the candidates, but I wasn't sure that I was right for the job or the job was right for me, and so I sat down with my family, with Elaine, with our children, and they agreed to permit me to write to the Rabbi and ask his advice. I set out that starting with the pros and cons of the job, and the Rabbi wrote a most extraordinary reply, a brilliant reply, without using a single word. You know that the Rabbi, before he was Rabbi, ran the Chabad publishing house, Kahot, and as a result, he knew. I've written 24 books, I don't know this thing yet, but he knew the typographical symbols that are used by proofreaders. So towards the end of the letter, having set out the pros and cons, I wrote the sentence, if they offer me the job, should I accept? This was the Rebbe's reply. The typographical symbol for reverse word order. Instead of saying, should I, the answer is, I should. So, 30 years to the day after I became a congregational rabbi, I became chief rabbi, and in that job I have tried to the best of my ability. If I succeeded, I don't know, but I tried to do what I know the Rebbe would have wanted me to do, to build schools, to improve Anglo-Jewish education, to reach out, and to make not followers, but leaders. I did one other thing, which was a little bit unusual, and I want to explain to you now why. I've never said this in public before. There was a point, and I was a little involved, Hannah and Lubavitch in London asked me just to get involved a little bit. There was a point in the 1970s and 80s when the Rebbe developed a very interesting campaign, the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach campaign, to reach out not just to Jews, but also to non-Jews. I realized that in my new position as chief rabbi, I could do just that. So I started broadcasting on the BBC, on radio, on television, writing for the national press. I wrote books read by non-Jews as well as Jews. And the effect was absolutely extraordinary. The more I spoke, the more they wanted to hear, which certainly proves they weren't Jewish. The more I wrote, the more they wanted to read, and you know what that experience told me? Not only the wisdom, the vast foresight of the Rebbe in understanding that the world was ready to hear a Jewish message, but it taught me something else as well. And I want you never to forget these words. Non-Jews respect Jews who respect Judaism. Non-Jews are embarrassed by Jews who are embarrassed by Judaism. The Rebbe taught us how to fulfill V'ra'u kol amei haaretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha, that all the world see we are never ashamed to stand tall as Jews. So at the three critical turning points in my life, the Rebbe was my satellite navigation system, showing me where to go and how. And though I didn't always understand why at the time, in retrospect I see how extraordinary his advice was and how wise. Most people look at others and see what they see. Great people look at others and see what they are. The greatest of the great. And the Rebbe was greatest of the great. See others and see what they could become. And that was his greatness. And you are testimony to the fact, every one of you, that not only did the Rebbe transform lives, he transformed people into people who themselves transformed lives. And that, through you, is how he changed the world. Through you, HaShluchim, and through all the other special people who support you and make your work possible. And now, friends, we must continue to transform the world. And how do we do it? We do it precisely in the words that are taken from Hayom Yom, that are the theme of this year's conference. HaShliach is the ein zach mit dem Meshaleach. We know from Rabbi Yosef Engel, from the Rabbi himself, that there are various madregas in being a shliach. But the highest madrega is, as it says in Hayom Yom, in Alts Mekushim, join in every single thing that we do. Es Geitachas, Estachas, Shlaftachas. I hope you're doing that now, guys, because if not, I have not been doing my job. Friends, if we live and breathe the Rebbe Shlichus, then he lives on in us. And the question is, what is that Shlichus here and now? There are so many things we could say about the challenges of the months ahead. I want to say just three things. Number one, think about this. The Rebbe, like every Rebbe, said it his goal to be Mekarav Geula, to bring Mashiach. But the Rebbe was different from other Rebbeim, because the Rebbe did so with particular urgency. And although he never specified why, I speculated on this. And I thought this, maybe I'm wrong, but I think not. Because he was the first Rebbe to become Rebbe after the Holocaust. And how can you redeem a world that had witnessed Hitler? And the Rebbe did something absolutely extraordinary. He said to himself, if the Nazis search out every Jew in hate, we will search out every Jew in love. Most radical response to the Holocaust ever conceived, and I don't know if the Jewish world still understands it. Today, in many parts of the world, anti-Semitism has returned, and Baruch Hashem, there are hundreds of organizations fighting it. But still, even now, no one is saying what the Rebbe said, not explicitly, but implicitly in everything he did. If you want to fight Sinas Yisrael, then practice Avas Yisrael. Friends, hands up all those who think there's too much Avas Yisrael in the world. So, friends, we still have work to do. We still have work to do. Anti-Semites, are totally crazy. Anti-Semites believe that Jews control the banks, they believe Jews control the media, they believe that Jews control the world. Little do they know that we can't even control a shul board meeting. And that is why, friends, if there's Sony Israel out there, we have to be Ohavei Israel. If the Rabbi